All right, welcome to the first of its kind, world-changing manufacturers network. Lisa Ryan has her ears to the ground and her heart in the game. Get ongoing education and new connections right here with Lisa and the Manufacturers Network. Buckle your seat, listen, and spread the word. Here's Lisa.
Hey, it's Lisa Ryan. Welcome to the Manufacturers Network podcast. I'm excited to introduce our guest today, Dan Shea. Dan is the managing director at Objective. He has over 30 years of success in the mergers and acquisitions field, particularly in manufacturing businesses. So, Dan, welcome to the show.
Lisa, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here today and to share some thoughts with you and your audience about the buying and selling of businesses in the manufacturing sector here in the United States.
Okay, awesome. So share with us a little bit about your background and what led you doing to what you do in mergers and acquisitions.
Sure. I grew up in the Midwest, and I was always interested in finance. I studied it in college and graduate school. And when you're a young person and you're looking for something interesting to do, what better to do than help people monetize their life's work, which is exactly what I do. And I had mentioned I grew up in the Midwest, and if you pick a region of the United States that's known for manufacturing the most, I would say it's the upper Midwest. So I got my start working in Cleveland, in Detroit, in Chicago, working with manufacturing businesses and their owners when it was time to sell those businesses. I found it fascinating from the very beginning, 30 plus years ago, and I continue to do that work today, now from Southern California, where there's also a lot of manufacturing businesses.
Okay. From your experience, what do you believe are the key factors that drive value in a manufacturing business?
I would tell you, without a doubt, the most important thing I would say is proprietariness of some sort. As a business owner, you want to look at your business and say, what am I doing that's special? And is it relevant? And how relevant is it to my customer base and the markets they serve? So when we are working with prospective clients, we look for that uniqueness, and the uniqueness can be actual intellectual property and the types of products they make. It can be know-how and their manufacturing technology employed and best practices learned through iteration. It can be a lot of different things. It can be the brand. It can be the people within the company. It can be proximity to customers. It can be into end markets that, for whatever reason, they've got the first mover status, and that end market is growing dramatically. Secondly, I think you look at margins. How efficiently is the company manufacturing its products relative to the competition? As a buyer, I'm looking for those companies that are doing something special, and they're doing it very efficiently. And they're using their assets accordingly to generate ample profits to justify the whole endeavor.
So a lot of companies probably approach you and they believe that their company is special. They believe that it's different, and because they're seeing it from the eyes of the owner. So what is can you give some examples of what would be a true differentiation when you're basically looking at someone's business?
First of all, when someone comes to us and thinks their business is special, we always honor that, because in some way,
yeah, oh, absolutely,
it is special. They've created something out of nothing. And that something that was created out of nothing employs people and provides livelihoods for the owners and their people. So that is special. When I talk about special, I think about what a buyer would want. And buyers want something that's reliable, and reliable not in the sense that the parts work and they work continually, but reliably predictable that the business is worth something and it's going to grow. We've sold a lot of businesses over the years in the manufacturing space. And last fall, we sold a business called FCI, stands for Fluid Components International. And FCI was a business that made flow meters. And not only just flow meters, but very special flow meters. They were the founders of FCI were like the early pioneers in the whole flow meter category some 40, 50 years ago. So they had brand recognition that they honored over the years and continued to advance their technology so they were the industry standard. Anybody who is a buyer that was looking to buy that product category knew of FCI and wanted to take a look at that business as a potential acquisition. We happened to find a business based in the UK that was a meters business. And those in the meter space understand that there are all kinds of pressure meters, there's temperature meters, there's all kinds of meters. And this particular business was lacking in the flow meter category. It was a hand in glove kind of opportunity to round out their product portfolio, which they can then offer to their customers and FCI's customers, because now they were going to those customers, not just with flow meters, but all the family of meters that a customer might need for their industrial application. So that's an idea. That's an example of something proprietary and special that buyers would want to own. So you're trying to create something that the market really wants and protect it, put a moat around it. It can be IP, it can be people, it can be customer base. You have the right special customer base. And it doesn't have to be something on the leading edge of the technology in the product. It could be that you've served customers and you've got the best customer service, the best reliability, the lowest parts per million defects. And you've known for that over decades. And that's special and proprietary too.
So are you finding that a lot of companies are looking to sell because they just don't have that next generation to pass the business to? Or what are some of the reasons that you're seeing that people want to release something that they've built for so long?
I think you hit on a big one. It's about who's going to take over. And oftentimes people start businesses when they're young and they have a family, and some of the kids get involved in the business. And sometimes it's the perfect situation where, son or daughter or more are ready to take over when the founders are ready to retire. And so businesses do pass along to the next generation, or they have a management team that is so competent and is able to find funding that they sell to the management team. Those two examples are the minority of cases, though. Most valuable manufacturing businesses sell in an arm's length transaction to an unrelated third party. And part of the reason for that is those folks, those buyers that category of buyer tends to have the wherewithal to do it. There are small businesses where you could pass it along and the kids could pay over time. But when you're dealing with companies that are worth 40, 50, $100 million, very hard for the next generation to come up with the down payment, the equity, and to find the debt to buy out mom and dad when they're ready to retire. So, and my dad was a doctor. I didn't want to be a doctor. What do you do about the child that doesn't want to be in the family business? You can't do that in medicine. It's a bad example. The example falls apart there in medicine, but in the business context, if the kids don't want to be in mom or dad's business, then you've got to transact at some point. It's interesting, especially in the manufacturing sector right now, a big percentage of businesses are still owned by baby boomers, and the youngest baby boomers are turning 60 this year.
Yes, they are.
It's time to transact because you can't hold your business forever. I'd like to think so. Some people are so passionate about their business that they just can never come to grips with the idea of selling it. But most people in their 60s and 70s are thinking about it or have already transacted their business. And so we're seeing that as an impetus for selling in this market. And it's been that way for a good 10 years now.
So are there additional insights about the current state of the M&A market, particularly as it pertains to manufacturing that you'd like to further expand on?
Absolutely. This is my profession. I could talk all day about it, but let me see if I can be succinct about it. There's that age wave, as they call it. That's one we've already discussed. Generally, up economies have more transaction activity. We're not in what buyers and sellers would view to be an up economy right now. Some would say it is, but there's a lot of hesitancy. Plus, we're in an election year, which creates hesitancy regardless. Deal volumes are down, but businesses are transacting. There's a lot of capital ready to be deployed by big companies and private equity firms to buy businesses. There's always a lot of buyer attention to the transactions we're working on. The question is, what's the risk tolerance? And risk tolerance has a direct input to price. And so what you tend to see is the prices are a little bit depressed, and maybe even a lot of bit depressed in certain facets of manufacturing. The other interesting thing that's going on right now is it seems to be a bit of a bifurcated market in that the really special companies get a lot of attention because they tend to be the ones that represent the opportunity that has a lower risk profile. You as a buyer would say, I think the market's a little dicey right now, but this is a special company. I'm willing to pay up for that. Whereas the less special, and we could talk for days about what makes a company special versus less special, they don't get as much attention and the valuations are lower. That being said, they do transact, and they transact at decent multiples. It's just a question of, is this the right time given the profile of the business? And if so, what is the expectation given the fact that most people think the economy is struggling a bit?
So, what steps should manufacturing companies take to prepare for a potential sale? And on the other hand, what would be some of the common pitfalls they'd want to avoid?
You ask great questions, Lisa. It's never too early to prepare. In fact, some people start businesses with selling in mind. So they build around what is the buyer looking for? Even 20 years before they sell, I'm going to build a business that someone's going to want to buy. So what is that? So there's strategic things, and then there's blocking and tackling things. Blocking and tackling things are make sure that you have a competent accounting staff. Make sure you have a competent outside accounting firm that's at least doing a review of your financial statements. Make sure you have your contracts in order and all the things that you might think were part of a due diligence process. Those are administrative type things generally. The strategic things are make sure you continue to invest in your facilities and make sure your equipment is well maintained and not overused and not almost obsolete. Make sure your safety policies are such that the people are safe and you have a safety record of it. Make sure that you're not polluting the ground and you're monitoring it and you're complying with your local EPA and making sure you're taking care of that. Make sure that you're paying a proper wage for your workers so that when they hear the company's for sale, by the way, that's a confidential thing, but if it gets back to the people and they're like, oh, I'm going to run for cover because I don't make that much here anyway, I'm not loyal. Make sure your people are loyal through making a nice environment for them, paying them properly, giving them proper benefits, market-based stuff. Make sure that you are not overly reliant on one customer. Or one product, or one line, production line, or one supplier. Diversify your business so that you can honestly look at your business and say, if I lost that one thing, would the business suffer? Am I too reliant on one or two or a few aspects of my business? Make sure you're selling into end markets that are growing. It was interesting. We had a client that used to do a lot of work in the TV parts end of things, injection molding, stamping. And they made a strategic decision 15 years ago, we're going to diversify. And they diversified into medical devices and other things. And it was the smartest thing they ever did because we all know what's happened with TVs. It's just not a great place to be. So
right.
Make sure that you're forward looking to the industry trends in the end markets ultimately being served by your parts. So there's a lot of strategic things that take a long time to put into place, but if you're constantly thinking strategically about that, as well as the intellectual property aspects of your business. What are you doing that's proprietary and how are you protecting it? You're going to have a good result at the end of the day when you go out to monetize your life's work, as we say in my business, and find the right buyer for your business. Also, when you're ready to start selling your company, you should hire competent counsel. That's lawyers and investment bankers like ourselves, because privately held businesses, there's no available market. If I want to go sell my Ford Motor shares, I can sell them right now. But if I want to sell my parts company that manufactures the encasements that hold the audio electronics in my new Ford Mustang, those metal components, I can't just go and sell my company on the public market. It's not, there's no liquid market for my shares. I own them all. And so I have to make a market for those shares, a confidential market that considers all the highest and best buyers. And that's the way you get the most for your business. And that's what we do. But then the lawyers are critical too, because they need to document the deal in a way that limits the risk to the seller in selling the business. There's all kinds of areas of legal risk that need to be protected.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple things about making sure that your workforce is paid correctly and doing all the things to take care of them. Even though it is a confidential deal, a lot of times it does, go through the grapevine that the company's up for sale. What are some best practices, either when you share with your employees that you're going to put up the company for sale, or they find out through the grapevine, so that you don't have that rush of people running for the door?
I can tell you, after doing this for 30 some years, that grapevine is a little overstated. There are things that a banker can do, an investment banker, and the ownership of the company and legal counsel to protect that business so that those leaks don't happen. When you sell a business, you operate under the principle of need to know basis. Because if you announce that you're selling the company, but you cannot paint an image of what that means to a worker, anybody in the company, it just creates a lot of doubt and question. So it's best to find the buyer and be finalizing the transaction before all but a core team of leaders in the company are in the know. The rest are not. And I don't mean to be, hopefully people don't interpret that as being awfully rude, but I can tell you that the knowledge is not very usable before the deal is struck. It just creates a lot of worry. And I can also tell you that this notion that everybody loses their job in these transactions is just completely and nearly untrue in nearly 100% of the cases. At least in the companies that I work with, healthy companies. And buyers are buying it because the people are doing a great job at what they do. If anything, it oftentimes creates opportunity for the workers to advance. But there are definitely things that can be done to protect the business, and employees aren't the only thing. You've also got customers and suppliers, and they're in the same category as employees.
Yeah, I guess that same uncertainty may be bad for business from a customer standpoint too. At least when you have everything figured out, you can go in with more of an open book to say, this is what's happening, and meet the new owners and everything. So that makes sense. So what do you think are the other most critical aspects to focus on to ensure a successful transaction when it does happen? You said the lawyers, the investment bankers.
Have your books in order and be prepared. So the process typically starts with a firm like ours putting together an offering book. And it's fascinating. It can be a 30-page to 80-page document that profiles the business in a way that's compelling and honest. And believe it or not, from a review of that document, buyers can get a sense for whether they're interested and what they might be prepared to pay. And then that's where the bidding starts. That people find that fascinating. I remember one of the earlier deals I did, I sat down with the owner and was telling him we went out and talked to 100 plus potential buyers. And I said, I think we're going to get 20 offers. He got 25 offers for his business, and he was totally floored. And all of a sudden, the process became very real to him. And he was like, I'm going to sell my company. Look at all these offers. Now, what's an offer? It's a preliminary offer. There's a lot of work to do through due diligence to get the deal done. A buyer's not going to buy a business unless they fully understand that business. The seller has to be prepared to convey the information to the business to the degree and at a pace and in a cadence that not only protects the company if it doesn't sell, but also satisfies the needs of that buyer, the information needs. And there's definitely a way to do that, but it starts with being prepared. It starts with gathering that data before it's asked for. It starts by having professionals review that data and look for risk areas in contracts and financial statements and trends in sales, trends in margin, and analyze it 6 ways from Sunday to make sure that whatever risks are in the business, they're looked at, quantified, and mitigated. So there's a lot of prep work that's involved. This is a slow process. We used to say it was a 5 to 6 month process. Now it's probably around an 8-month process because in this era of big data, there's just so much more to analyze, and buyers will analyze it before they sign on the dotted line and transfer the money to a seller.
Is manufacturing a good place to invest right now? And what should investors be aware of before diving in?
Great question. So it was commonly believed that manufacturing in the United States was dead and gone. You could look at the headcount statistics, you could look at the number of businesses, you could look at the performance of those businesses, at least in the public market, and say that we're going down. Everything's over in Asia or south of the border, and that's just the way it is. I thank goodness it hasn't proven to be the case because certain things have changed. Labor rates have increased in places like China. There's a need to protect intellectual property against foreign actors. There are supply chain issues that are causing people to be less comfortable with supply chains. And so you're seeing a nearshoring. I'm sure you talk about it on your podcast all the time. Nearshoring and onshoring. We are working on it with a client in Mexico right now that is benefiting immensely from nearshoring. They sell all of their products into the United States, and they're having Asian customers transfer volume to their Mexican operations just simply to be closer to the customer to mitigate some of those risks. It is a good time. And then the last piece that makes it a good time is all the new technology that's being employed into the manufacturing environment, which is creating lots of efficiencies, which makes the US and North American, Central American, and South American providers more cost competitive.
As we're starting to get to the end of our time together, is there something that you wished I asked you and I didn't?
Sorry. Is there something
or anything else that you'd like to add to the conversation?
I would like to add these kinds of discussions run the risk of making it seem like this is just such a tedious process and difficult thing to do. Tedious, but it is very doable, and people ought to go into it trying to find support that's trustworthy. What I mean by that is if you were the owner of a business, trying to sell it is such an intangible. Most people have never done it before, but yet they own a business and they need to do it. So it's, the age-old thing, one step at a time. Find good people around you who can guide you through that and just take it one step at a time. And sure enough, once you get going, the decision tree expands and you start to see paths through it that are workable for you. I've seen most of my clients through the sale process gain more and more confidence in what they're doing as they go through it because it becomes more clear. But any big project requires a lot of kind of faith at the front end. You take one step at a time and then you adapt, take another step. And so I hopefully your listeners will take that to heart and realize that if they feel it's time to sell, find good people, surround yourself with good advisors, a good accountant, a good lawyer, a good investment banker. And if you're worried about the fees, they'll scope the fees out for you. And I think you'll find that they are not a ripoff. They're necessary. And at the end, nearly everyone thinks, I'm glad I spent that money because I can see the return I got for it. And you should start those conversations early. Many of our clients are people we've known for a long time, and we've talked to them over years. And we've talked to them about getting their business ready for sale so that if you've got a 5-year runway, perfect. You can start doing not only the administrative, but the strategic things that we talked about to get that business ready for that go time. And I suggest you do that and don't worry so much. As long as you've got trustworthy people around you, you'll get through this and you'll be happy that you did it. Most of my clients are really happy. They're like, look, I can't believe what I did. I started with nothing and now I have $80 million in the bank. What an amazing story. Not that money is everything. Yeah, you could also go by other measures. I provided for my family. I provided for myself. I created 1,000 jobs or whatever over time. It's pretty remarkable. Yeah. And most business owners would tell you that they'd rather have their money tied up in their business because they understand the risk associated with that versus some portfolio of stocks. It's a really cool process, and I would encourage people when they're ready, and even if they're not, I don't even know how you could be ready unless you've surveyed the process and you've surveyed people who take people through the process and hear what they have to say, because then the picture becomes more clear and then you can tell yourself whether or not you're ready.
Yeah. So if somebody did want to continue the conversation with you, what's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
The firm is called Objective, and you can find us online at Objective, I as in investment, B as in banking, V as in valuation.com. So IBV.com. Again, my name is Dan Shea, and my contact information is there. We'd love to hear from you. We also do work in a variety of other industries, so we can talk about that. But I run our manufacturing team, and we do business all over the world. And we'd love to hear from you and just start a conversation.
All right, Dan, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you, Lisa. It was truly a pleasure. Thanks for asking all those great questions.
You're very welcome. I'm Lisa Ryan, and this is the Manufacturers Network podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Manufacturers Network podcast. Do me a favor and share this podcast with your friends and colleagues so we can grow this network and connect more fantastic folks just like you. You can either send your buddies to the website at manufacturers-network.com or share the Manufacturers Network podcast on your LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or wherever you and your industry friends hang out. The bigger and faster we grow the network, the stronger and deeper the community we'll all have. Thanks again, and I appreciate you.